Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, there, party people. It's Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 141 of Gridiron Grinder, and we're about a week away from the NFL draft. So for tonight, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium, like we always do. Then we're going to do our recap of the news from this past week. After that, we're going to do a first round mock draft, and then we'll close it off with our question of the week. And so, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's going good, man. It's going good. I kind of finished getting all my notes together today and feel pretty good about our mock draft. This is always a fun episode for us.
Yeah, it definitely is. I've been working on this all year, so I have a little bit of an advantage. Kind of. I watch college football, you don't, so
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I pay attention a little bit, but not nearly as much as you.
yeah.
Well,
So
that's cool. All right. Well, hey, why don't we, just move it on over and you do a little name that stadium action for us there, James.
all right. So this is the section of the show, and as you can see, I'm traveling around to stadiums that have hosted NFL games or host NFL games. And you guess, you get it right, be the first one. We'll give you an extra special shout out, bookmark it. You can brag to all your friends. Another week with no takers that I saw. Haven't checked the last like 6 hours or whatever, but I
Nah,
didn't see
still
any
nothing.
takers. Yeah, so come on, people, throw a guess out there. It
Yeah,
should
get
be
off
obvious.
your butakuses and make some choices here.
Yeah, but so last week I was in Washington, and the reason I chose Washington is kind of tied into like all news all week about like I thought the deal was done when we talked about it, but apparently it's not quite done. And apparently even this week somebody came in with a higher offer to buy the team.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and then like a day later he was like sued for not paying people or something like that.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So, but it was like he offered like I think it was more than $7 billion for the team.
Whoa, that's a big premium from the what 6.05 or whatever it was, or
Yeah, I forget who it was. Like I forget who it was, but then like there was an article I saw that like days after offering or coming in putting in $6 billion offer, so and so is like I think his last name was Davis, is sued for something. I was like,
okay.
geez.
Yeah, maybe an attempt to block him or something.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. It wasn't to block him. It
Okay.
was like he failed to pay creditors.
Gotcha.
See if I can find it. I'm not seeing it real quick.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, if you're that big of a business guy, it seems like you'd probably have some stuff like that that just happens because you do so much business,
Hmm.
that something's going to get missed somewhere, or maybe it's even like a fraudulent thing that just takes forever to get cleared up. And, it's like when you're that big, there's a lot of transactions.
Yeah, my computer. After let's see if I can find it.
Sure, take your time. Yeah, I think I know what your inspiration was for this week. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so Brian Davis is the person, and he was he placed a $7 billion offer to buy the Washington Commanders and seeks a judgment of he sued for failing to repay a loan and
Okay.
seeks a judgment for $322,000 in loans that he failed to repay and a $200 a day in penalty for every day each loan is overdue.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So it
That
was
sounds
just
like a California law. Let's just compound daily penalties.
yeah, it's in DC Superior Court, and suing him and his company for failing to pay two loans, one for 230 and one for 92,000 to some Marian Mahdavi.
Okay. Yeah, when you're talking 7 billion, that's just a drop in the bucket. But um, I'm sure he's probably got to have all that cleared up and whatever it takes to properly be qualified or vetted to buy an NFL team.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Gotcha.
Basically, it's money, and the owners have to say, okay,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they will. They're
yeah,
ready for this.
yeah. They're seeking. There's also something out there. Right, apparently, we're jumping into the news now.
Well, let's just
So
officially recap of the past week. Here we go.
yeah, so there's something out there where, and I don't know if it was somebody is seeking for the NFL. Lawyers seek NFL protection from Snyder. Okay, so the lawyers representing the former employees of the Commanders are saying request in a letter sent to the league asked for protection for their clients and others who spoke with Beth Wilkinson and Mary Jo White and Congress as part of the investigations. So seeking for the NFL to protect them from potential lawsuits from Daniel Snyder.
Okay. Yeah, like slander and stuff like that.
Yeah, whatever.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would wonder why the NFL would defend them, but
Oh, because two of the investigators were hired by the NFL,
hmm
so I think that might be part of it.
okay. Yeah, I mean, hey, the guys got to sell the team and move on, and you know,
Hmm.
it'll be a couple years we'll hear about somebody else doing some shady stuff. It's just the way it goes.
Well, yeah, because Daniel Snyder has that whole book of everything each NFL owner did wrong because he had them
Yeah,
followed by
he's got the
private
dirt.
investigators.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, he's got the dirt. Oh, that's not good. Okay, well, yeah, let's get off of that, man. So, the biggest news from this past, well, I'll say maybe two things you could argue are the biggest news, but one of them is Jalen Hurts, James. He is getting paid in a major way, and so he signed a 5-year extension worth $255 million. 179 million of that's guaranteed. This now makes him the highest paid player on a per year basis, and so good for him. There have been like a million different articles out there talking about what does this mean for Lamar Jackson and for, deals with other quarterbacks like Herbert and whoever else that are going to be coming up soon. And, hey, I mean, every time one of these deals gets done, it kind of sets the new benchmark for the next guy. And so,
Mhm.
I think it's good for him. I think, if we had a real salary cap, you could say, oh, this could be maybe problematic for the team. But, we're living in that fake cap era. I'm sure they'll find a way to, stack the roster and still make some moves.
Well, first of all, this is fucking phenomenal for the team how this contract is structured.
Okay.
It's
Well, tell
it's
me
it's
about it.
absolutely 100% phenomenal. So okay, so 20. This doesn't have the updated one. Darn it. So I was reading it and I wanted to quote the right numbers, but over the next 4 years, Jalen Hurts' cap hit for the Philadelphia Eagles doesn't even go into the top 10 for quarterbacks in the league.
Oh, wow. Okay. So,
This
yeah,
is
they really found a way to make it.
this is
Yeah.
structured ridiculously well. Like Howie Roseman needs to take a bow on this one
Okay. So,
because
yeah.
it's
So you're saying that they're going to have at least 4 years of a Super Bowl window.
yeah, like I think this coming season, his cap hits $6 million,
Okay.
and then
Yeah,
next
because he's
year
still on the
it's
rookie deal, and yeah, and so it like adjusts it now. Yep, I got you.
and then next year it's like 8 million. Let me see if Spotrac has it updated because yeah, it doesn't have it updated, but It's like next year's like 8 million, and then the year after that's like 10 million. It's just
And so then what does it do? Balloon?
I think yeah, it kind of after like 4 or 5 years, then it starts to get heavier. But then 4 or 5 years from now, after like year four, I think it gets heavier. I'm not seeing it. I wish I would was able to find it. But I mean, if you saw the cap hits, you'd be
Okay.
like,
Okay.
oh my gosh, this is
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I guess if that's the case, it gives them 4 years to figure out how to adjust, if and when it starts to balloon. Do they convert it to signing bonus and things like that, all the different kind of games they can
yeah.
play?
Okay, then I have one more shot at the salary cap breakdown
Sure.
of his contract. So it's okay. So yeah, it's 6 years, whatever. Ah, it just doesn't.
Hey, if you can't find it, it's not a big deal. I am interested though. If you find it later, send it to me, or I'll do some digging.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's and it has a full no trade clause on it too.
Oh yeah, that's good to point out. I did hear that. Yeah. Yeah, that's becoming more common now with quarterbacks especially.
All right, I have one more shot at this, and if this doesn't work, then I will give it up. But it's
Sure. Yeah.
all right. So this year, 2023, it's $6.15 million. 2024, his cap hit is 13.56. 2025, his cap hit is 21.77. 2026, his cap hit is 31.77.
Okay. I don't even know how that's possible. And then it's 100 million.
Yeah, so I think there's options, and I don't know how it's possible, but I was hearing about it, and I was just like, oh my God, that is ridiculously good
Yeah.
for Philadelphia. Like I couldn't believe how minimal his cap hit was, and like what I had read was like in like 2026 at the current pay rate of NFL quarterback, he's like the 12th highest cap hit for NFL quarterbacks.
Gotcha. Which will be totally different and inflated by then, which means he'll be even lower on the list.
Yeah, and then but you say, well, what is people are saying? What does this do to Lamar Jackson? Blah blah blah. The thing with it is everything I'm reading is Lamar Jackson was offered, if not the exact same deal with the exact same guarantees, a very similar deal.
Okay.
It was like 250 million over 6 years with like 170 to 180 million guaranteed in the contract, and a very similar contract to
Okay.
Jalen Hurts.
So I
And
only heard about the 3-year deal, but you're saying there was another one out there.
yeah, there was another reports here were that I
Okay.
read and that I heard. It was
Yeah,
there
so
was
maybe it was the 3-year deal was the fully guaranteed one, and then there
yeah
was this other one that Lamar was just like, no, it's not fully guaranteed. I'm not doing it.
yeah. So real quick, yeah, Hertz or Lamar was offered a 5-year extension that averaged 50 million per year, and total guarantees would have been 175 million.
Wow, and he turned it down.
Yes.
Shame on him, man. Shame on him.
Yeah. So it's just fucked up. But it's so similar that I don't think it does shit for Lamar Jackson's situation because Lamar's kind of looking at it. Well, look at Deshaun Watson contract. Deshaun Watson contract was an outlier, and that's
Yeah,
that's evident
yeah,
with what happened with Jalen Hurts. And
yeah.
yeah, okay, so Burrow's probably going to get a similar deal to Hurts, and Herbert's probably going to get a similar deal to Hurts. Tua probably won't get shit. Um, but it's just there's something wrong in Lamar's camp because
Yeah.
the thing I absolutely love about it is the stories on how Jalen Hurts got his agent. Have you heard
Okay.
about that?
No, no.
So it's a black check, and she when Jalen had announced was going to go pro or something, or right before he was announcing, leading up to the draft, she sent him a DM on Instagram saying, "I don't know if you have an agent, but if you need one, I'm interested." And he's like, "Yep, you're good to go." And then she goes out and gets
That
him
easy.
this
Yeah.
deal.
And now she's a happy lady.
Yeah, I mean, she gets what, like 3 or 6%,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
mean, 6% of 255 million's not that bad.
Oh yeah. No, hey, that's a hell of a deal. Well, that's cool, man. And I like that they structured it that way so Philly can stay relevant for a few years. Because yeah, that's the problem. Is a lot of times a team signs a quarterback to big money, and
Hmm.
then they just can't fill the roster. And so, the quarterback can get them to a certain point, but you know, not necessarily get them over the hump all on their own. And so this sounds like it's a pretty good deal all around.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal all around. And if you look at it, like look at the Super Bowl this past year. Jalen Hurts probably had, if not the best, one of the best performances in the Super Bowl
Yeah,
as quarterback.
yeah.
And
Well, yeah, and I've heard people already saying the difference between him and Lamar is, yeah, Lamar maybe got that MVP, but Hurts got him that close to winning a Super Bowl, and really they probably should have won it.
mhm.
But Lamar hasn't gotten him that far in the playoffs, and so it's like, you got to
Lamar
look at,
hasn't won a playoff game. Has Lamar even played in any of their playoff games?
I'd have to go back and look now off the top of my head. I got to believe he has, but
Yeah, like,
um,
but still, and also, okay, you want to say Lamar had an MVP. This past year, Jalen Hurts was having an MVP season. The only
yeah,
reason he didn't get the MVP is because he ended up hurt for
yep,
what, 3 or 4 games.
yeah, at the end
So
of the season, yeah,
yeah, he missed those 4 games, and I still thought he should have won the MVP because of the fact on how the team tailed off
yeah.
after he
Oh
left.
yeah, no, you made a good case for that. I like that you pointed it out that way. That it's not like the team maintained without him. They tanked for those couple
Mhm.
games. So just goes to show how pivotal it was. So
Okay,
yeah, and,
so
I want to.
Lamar's
I'm kind
won
of
one.
remembering Lamar. I want to say they lost to Tennessee one year in the playoffs, or maybe I
So
got that.
Lamar has this past year was the first year he didn't play in their playoff game.
Okay,
Um, in 18, he lost. He played in the playoff game and lost, and he went 14. He started it. He went 14 for 29,
okay,
194 yards, and had 54 rushing yards. Then in 2019, he lost again. I don't have who they're playing. It
that's
just
fine.
says
Yeah,
so they lost again. He was 31 for 59 for 365 yards and 143 rushing yards.
so a really good game, but they still lost.
Yeah, and then in 2020 he won a playoff game,
Okay,
and he had he was in the postseason. He was 31 31 for 48. So they didn't pass. Like that can't be right. Like that's like one game total the year before. That has to be like an average. No, because it's not. Oh. So they beat Tennessee in 2020, and then they
okay,
lost to Buffalo in 2020.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I remember something about the Tennessee game. I thought it was the other way for some reason, but okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, I think his first year, one of the years, I think they played Tennessee and lost, and then the final.
And then it was
So
some revenge, maybe.
yeah, they lost to Tennessee in 2019,
Okay,
and that's when they were the number one seed. And then 2018, they lost to the Chargers.
gotcha.
So yeah, so he's played. I'm sorry, he's played in a playoff game, and he's won a playoff game. It's
Yeah,
just
he just hasn't gotten them very far in the playoffs.
yeah,
And that's for a Baltimore team that really has been very talented on the roster. It's
hmm
not like it's all Lamar. They've had guys on both sides of the ball for a long time.
yeah, they have. So and I mean, yeah, Philadelphia was stacked last year, but I mean, if we're being fair, they Hurts missed what 4 games last year,
Hmm.
and Philadelphia almost lost the number one seed because of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think they've won a game without him. He played in the regular season last year. He played in 15 games, so he missed 2 games,
Okay.
and they were 0-2 because they were 14-1 in games he played, and they finished the season at 14-3.
Gotcha.
So I still say Hurts should have won the MVP last year, and I'll take
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Hey,
But
it's all good, man. He's getting his money. I'm sure he's happy.
yeah, I'm sure
And
he's
so's his
happy.
agent.
Exactly.
All right. So, yeah. So, the other big news from this past week, James, which is why I said maybe it's, a double kind of thing here, but Damar Hamlin, the Bills came out and they said that he has been cleared by
Mm.
doctors to resume football activities. And so I'm sure, everybody at this point probably knows Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills safety, had that cardiac arrest on the field last year in that game. Him getting cleared, that's a huge win for him, man. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's still going to be an uphill battle for him to actually get back on the field, but great news nonetheless, man.
Yeah, it's great news. Apparently he went to multiple specialists, and everyone said, "No, you're fine." Basically, everyone said across the board, "You're fine." His diagnosis was cordocarditis,
Okay.
which basically what happens with cordocarditis is you get you're impacted in the right spot in your chest at the exact right point in your heartbeat or your heart
Yeah.
rhythm. So that impact automatically causes cardiac arrest if it's strong enough.
Yeah,
And
it
then
sounds like it's a super rare thing to occur.
it is, but it is the leading cause of death in youth sports.
Okay.
And so apparently Hamlin's creating some sort of foundation or something to
Nice.
for
Build
research on
awareness and
build
yeah,
awareness. Yeah, but yeah, and it's extremely rare for it to happen as an adult.
gotcha.
So, which is good. It's good for him. It was a complete fluke thing. Like, there's no way there's it happens or it doesn't happen, and it just has to be the right moment in your heartbeat
Yeah.
for if for it to happen.
Oh yeah, it's pretty wild, man. But yeah, I'm happy for the guy and I hope he can play, man. I mean that's the real win. If he gets back on the field and continues his career and overcomes it, that's
Mhm.
the real happy story.
Oh,
So
exactly.
all right, so the next thing I had here, James, is that Allen Robinson, um, I think the details have come out now, but when I read about it earlier, he was being traded from the Rams to the Steelers. Um, I thought I saw something about he's going to Pittsburgh with a seventh round pick, and
Mm-hmm.
in return, they're getting a better seventh round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the Rams are paying like 10 million of his salary this next year. It sounded like a really screwy deal for the Rams. Like when I saw it, I thought, why are they doing this? But I wasn't, I didn't have enough time to like fully dig into it. It just seemed on the surface like it was a bad trade for the Rams.
I agree. On the surface, it seems like a bad trade for the Rams. I don't know. Maybe there's something behind the scenes that we don't know of. Like
Okay.
Allen Robinson was. I actually forgot.
Unhappy or who knows,
I actually forgot he was on the Rams. So
Yeah.
when did he join the Rams? Like I
Just
don't
last
even.
year, man, and it was a really down year for him.
Yeah,
You would have thought that he would have done great with the Rams, but um, yeah, it just didn't click.
yeah. So I. That's how much I remembered. Like I don't even think he played the full season.
I mean, the guy was
Yeah,
a ghost, man.
he played.
So,
He played 10 games, and here his he played in 10 games. He whatever reason he didn't play after the New Orleans game on November 20th, but the entire season he had 33 receptions on 52 targets, 339 yards, 3 TDs.
yeah, yeah, that's like career low for him, basically.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, did he get hurt? Because
I mean, I would imagine if he only played 10 games, something must have happened because they had a lot of guys get hurt, and they would have wanted to play him, I'm sure, if he could have played because they needed the help. But, at some point, I mean, their season was just pretty much done anyhow. Although they frickin' Baker Mayfield got him like one sneaky win to tweak our draft pick. Thank you, Baker. You know,
okay, so his 2023 salary is guaranteed, and so I'm just looking at this article that was around the time of the owners meeting that it was like basically clear that they weren't sure if he was going to be back. Worst season's career. Yeah, he ended up on the injured reserves needing foot surgery,
okay.
so that's why he missed. But yeah, I
I
don't
think
see
it's a
anything.
steal of a move for Pittsburgh, man, because if he can bounce back, wow, that's a heck of a weapon for Kenny Pickett.
Okay, so I see actually reading this article, I see absolutely why the Rams were okay with paying the 10 point whatever million because this little blurb in this article, if the Rams trade Robinson before June 1st, they'd incur 11.2 million of dead money in 2023
Okay.
and save 6.85 million of salary cap space.
So they were taking a hit either way.
Yeah, so they were taking the hit either way. So obviously there's something more to it behind the scenes that just isn't known
Yeah,
because
it's
like
still a shitty trade.
it's a real shitty trade.
Yeah, or his foot's bad,
No,
and
because he passed the physical. Because as
yeah, I
part
guess
of
if he passed the physical, then yeah, I mean his foot's got to be good enough. Because I was gonna say
yeah.
the other part is maybe it's like, yeah, hey, he's recovered, but he's not the same. The foot's, and they're just telling Pittsburgh, hey, if you want to take your chances on him, but yeah, I guess if he had a physical, I don't know.
Yeah, just glancing through it, yeah, because he as part of the trade for the trade to be finalized, he had to pass his physical with the Steelers.
Gotcha. Hey, that's all right. Good trade for Pittsburgh, bad trade for the Rams.
Yeah, I all that to move up 17 spots.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like the Rams are imploding and they're making bad decisions left and right. So,
Yeah, which it really concerns me for the Lions because that's where Brad Holmes is from.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's a whole separate conversation, I guess,
Hmm.
because they were good up until his departure, and there was, I was speculative on Brad Holmes when we brought him in because there was a lot of talk about really how much did he do for the organization to like warrant him elevating up to that GM level. And I think he's done a great job with Detroit so far. And so
Actually,
I don't want
maybe
to,
maybe in Detroit there was speculative about what he was doing, what he did within the organization and elevating him. Out here, it was like he was super involved in the
yeah,
organization,
yeah.
and like that piece missing is a big piece for the Rams front
Oh,
office.
gotcha. Well, no, that's good because yeah, I had heard that it was like, he was basically like a power scout, and Les
Mhm.
Snead was making all the calls, and so, like, but like the one win was that he like pounded the table for Aaron Donald, and but I just, I had heard that his voice was often unheard because Les Snead was just like, I'm the man, I'm doing what I got to do, so.
Yeah, and it's just two perspectives. Out here, that's definitely not what it was.
And that's
Um,
good. It's good. I like it. I like that
portrayed
we
how it
got
was
him. I
portrayed.
like what he's been doing so far. He's been making great moves for the Lions, man. I'm happy.
Mhm.
First time in a long time, maybe my lifetime, that we've seen that. So,
True.
all right. So next up, James, on the sadder side, we got this stuff every week, it seems like. But Chris Smith, a former defensive lineman, played 8 seasons with the Jags, the Bengals, the Browns, the Raiders, and the Houston Texans. He has passed away at 31. The cause of death is unknown at this time. Sad stuff, man. Sad stuff.
Yeah, I missed that one. I thought you were going with the Dave Wilcox, who was a Hall of Fame linebacker from the 49ers.
Oh no, I didn't. What? Yeah, I guess so.
He
Um,
died at the age of 80.
okay.
Uh,
So I mean that's better, but still sad. You know, any death is sad, but 80 is a more full life.
mhm.
31, it's tough. There's a lot of these early deaths with these NFL players, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
all right, but I don't want to hang up on that too long. The last thing I got in the news here, James, is Justin Herbert made the news. Apparently, Brandon Staley made some kind of comment that he's unsure about whether or not Herbert's going to be ready for OTAs, saying that he's still recovering from his shoulder surgery, which was on his left non throwing arm. And so I don't know, noteworthy, I guess, because of maybe the timing, but there's still a ways before week one. And so I'm not sure there's much to be worried about with that.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I think it's smoke, no fire.
Okay. So, anything else news-wise that you want to hit, man?
So the one thing that I wanted to hit, and it's I want
Hit
to
it, dude.
I want to get the direct quote from this. So during the season when your Tua had concussions and his concussions were like he had like concussion after concussion,
Yep.
um, I had said this. I said, he really should sit down and consider whether it's worth it.
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't want to have a permanent freaking brain damage thing and your whole life be ruined.
Right. So in the first news conference, since his concussion on December 25th, Tua spoke to the media and said he sat down and considered walking away from football.
It's good he did that.
And um, his quote is, "I considered it for a time, having sat down with my family, having sat down with my wife, and having those kinds of conversations. Ultimately, he didn't decide, but I'm glad he had the conversation, especially like, is this worth it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like just being being cognizant of what could happen and the seriousness of it. And I'm so glad that he did. Also, apparently he's been using crash pads to learn how to fall.
Okay.
so he doesn't hit his head and get a concussion again.
That's good, man. I'll tell you, just from my, football days back in the day, which were not, it's not like I played college ball or anything like that, but a big thing was learning how to fall. And
Hmm.
the guys that didn't know how to fall were the guys that always got hurt, man. And you could kind of just see it with them. You're like, oh my gosh, like, you got to know how to like go down and let your body absorb it in the right kind of way. Um, and it doesn't mean that every time you fall it's going to be good. Sometimes you get smoked and it is what it is. But learning how to fall is huge. And I don't know how you teach that, but it sounds like they got maybe some
Hmm.
ways of doing that.
So it's like basically like teaching, like using like crash test pads type of thing, and teaching like body posture, like when you're hit and you're going down, how to like tuck your head,
Yeah,
which like, and you hold it here, you won't bang on the ground, and just like little stuff like that on how he can hit the ground, and not bang his head around.
yeah, yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I've always, I've heard a lot about like the, depending on what angle you're going down, it's like try to let your knee, your hip, and then get your
Hmm.
arm like all sort of like have a piece of absorbing the fall, and it's like, you don't necessarily want any one of them absorbing the impact. You want them to kind of like in sequence share the impact, and then it ends up being a much less painful kind of fall.
Hmm. So
Well, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that.
yeah, so
Anything
I
else?
just, nope, that was about it. Like there's a lot of stuff that happened, but I don't know, like arrests and Mixon pleading not guilty. Was it Mixon? Whoever was,
I
yeah,
know we were
Mixon.
talking about him a week or two ago that he was
Yeah,
like recharged and,
he pled not guilty in court.
okay.
Um, there was a draft prospect, wide receiver that was struck by a suspected drunk driver
Oh man.
like 10 days ago. He was hospitalized as like a middle round pick. So, but he's out of the hospital, so he's
Well, that's
on
good.
on the mend. But nothing really earth shattering
Okay.
outside of that.
All right. Well, hey, man, let's move it on over. Let's do our round one mock draft, man. And so, kind of like we've done these last couple of years, I got a spreadsheet that I'm going to be referring to just to kind of help me guide some of this and look at what I had for team needs, look at some of the comments I've heard from the rumor mill, and then just track our picks as we go so that we're not, renaming things that are already off the board. And so,
Yeah.
um, you know, I guess I'll just start by, these past couple weeks we did the team needs, and I know I mentioned this before, but I married an article from NFL.com with another one from CBSSports.com, and then over the last 2 weeks, as you and I talked about it, we made some notes about where we thought the order needed to be tweaked based on some of their free agent signings and things like that, and where they could get the most bang for their buck to help improve the team, and so I did use those sources and then tweaked it based off our notes. And then I also referenced an ESPN.com article to get the latest draft buzz talking about, what teams are focusing on what positions for what rounds and that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to kind of use all of this together as I'm making my picks. And I thought we would do it like we've done in the past, where we rotate, where we can flip a coin to figure out who goes first. And then one of us will make a pick, the other one will make the pick. And that way, it's kind of like a little bit more realistic, like I could snipe a pick and then you got to adjust and whatever else. But I'd like it to still be collaborative, if you don't mind that, where it's, I'm not just going to like make a pick and not listen to you whatsoever. It's,
Mhm.
our feedback or input both ways is good for talking these things out. So,
Yeah, so I feel like the last couple years I've ended up going first.
okay. So you
So
want
I
me to go first?
so I think I'll let you go first this year.
You're
And
just going to
instead
give
of
it to me. Okay.
just give it to you instead of making a flipping a coin. I just feel like I always end up going first. So I'll let
Sure.
you go first.
Sure. I think you're doing that so you can get the Lions at 6, but, I'll go first. I got no problem with that. You just tell me when I'm on the clock, my friend.
I would put you on the clock starting now.
Starting now. Oh no, how much time do I have? Shit. All right, so yeah, for the first pick, that's the Carolina Panthers, and we talked about their team needs, quarterback, offensive guard, wide receiver, edge, blah 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 blah. Obviously, they moved up to number one because they want a quarterback, and up until this point, it has been either between Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. In recent weeks, Stroud kind of had the edge, but I've been hearing a lot this week that Bryce Young has like retaken that spot as like their top guy on their board, which I think is consistent with some of the comments we've heard. Like Frank Reich made a comment that the height thing is not going to be an issue for them. And people originally thought that would be a deterrent because Frank Reich's only coached quarterbacks that are like 6'2" or taller or whatever the story was. But um, if I'm making the pick here, I'm going Bryce Young, man, and I'll just,
Mhm.
I'll put it in my board, I'll lock it in. But let's get your 2 cents on it before we move on, man.
I agree with you there. I honestly, everything is trending towards Bryce Young being the number one overall pick. I think he's a better prospect than C.J. Stroud, anyways, as it is. But I also think that based on what I'm seeing, all the rumors that I'm seeing on it, I think first of all, Bryce Young canceled all his visits with all the other teams after visiting Carolina. Allegedly, Carolina didn't tell him that they were picking him number one. I say allegedly
Yeah,
because of the fact that why else would he cancel everything?
yeah, he's feeling pretty good about it. And, I think whether they went Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, I think they'd be in good shape either way. I like the tape that I've seen on Stroud. And these guys are very close. Like when you're looking at the ESPN.com best available, Bryce Young's got a 95 grade, Stroud's got a 94. And I think Stroud has had some like unused athletic ability that maybe we're going to see come out a little bit more in the NFL as he develops. But yeah, it's hard to argue with Bryce Young. The only knock on him is the size. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, hey man, that puts you on the clock here at 2 for the Houston Texans pick. What are you thinking there, James?
Well, first of all, because I think Carolina's going to pick Bryce Young, ultimately, I'm going to put the caveat that I think Houston might trade out of this pick and trade back a little bit because everything I'm reading is they don't want to deal with CJ Stroud's agent. And you had mentioned it too, that
Yeah,
that's that's something that's coming out. But
yeah,
since
yeah. Apparently, Stroud shares an agent with Deshaun Watson, which is a sore spot for the Texans.
yeah, and also we'll come back to them at number 12, and that's where I think they might get their quarterback. I think they might. There's a possibility that they would stay in here, and from everything I'm reading, their pick would be Will Anderson if Bryce Young goes number one. I think Will Anderson's probably one of, if not the best edge guy in the draft. I think defensively, that would be a good pick for them.
Yeah, and their new head coach, Demeco Ryans, defensive-minded guy. You're getting him. I mean, a lot of people are, I mean, Will Anderson's nickname is the Terminator. So,
Hmm.
it just says it right there. You're getting a beast that's going to transform that defense for the long term. I don't think there's anything wrong with them passing on a quarterback. Just because they're at number 2, it doesn't mean you have to do it. It's year one of a rebuild.
Hmm.
Get the guy you want and build it the way you want to build it. So, but yeah, we could talk more about that later. I kind of was hinting that we would maybe cover this a little bit in question of the week, but
Yeah.
obviously it's coming up because, it's the second pick. So, but that's cool. I penciled in Will Anderson on my mock draft here, James. And so that takes us to 3, which is the Arizona Cardinals. And this one is tricky because I think that they want to trade out of this pick. I
Hmm.
think that, and there have been at least 6 teams that have called and asked about it, and they're just trying to find the right value. And I think for a team where Kyler's going to be out for the bulk of this next year, you got a new head coach, the team's pretty much in disarray. The best thing for them long term would be to trade out and load up on picks and start building for the future. But in our exercise here, we're not making a trade, and
Right.
so
And for trade, I could see Tennessee being especially if the top two go as we kind of see, I could see Tennessee being the team to jump up and trade with them on that and to pick CJ Stroud. But
yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, and I've heard, yeah, Tennessee has been rumored to be doing their homework on the quarterbacks, man.
mhm.
All right, and yeah, so I guess then if I'm looking at their needs, I've got defensive line is their top need, whether it's defensive tackle or defensive end. Then I've got cornerback, 2 offensive linemen, edge, which kind of ties into the defensive line, depending on what position you go for, in running back. And so, they did bring in, we were just talking about this last week, Jonathan Gannon's the new head coach. He's a defensive minded guy. They obviously don't need to go quarterback with Kyler, even though we've talked about, you know, could they find a way to trade Kyler and draft a quarterback and restart that clock? If they were going to do that, I think it'd have to be next year when he's healthy. And so that's not really an option. The top guy on the board, if we're going defensive line, is Jalen Carter. And he's got some off field issues. The next guy down is Tyree Wilson at defensive end. And man, it's tough. I think that because of the off field issues, I'm going to skip him here and I'm going to pencil in Tyree Wilson.
I personally would like to see Arizona go with quarterback here. I do agree with you that I think because of the off the field issues with Jalen Carter, that drops him a little bit and possibly hurt his draft status. And he's admitted that it's probably hurt his draft. Um, so I would I would agree with you with Tyree Wilson being the Arizona pick there.
Yeah, I guess let me ask you, because, we're talking this out. Do you see a scenario where they would go like Peter Skoronsky and lock up their left tackle position? Or is that something where it's, hey, Kyler's not playing this year anyhow, just wait and address it later?
I think I think they could possibly lock up their left tackle later in the draft because I don't think necessarily any of these offensive tackles, even
Yeah, it is pretty
Skronsky
high. Yeah.
or Broderick Jones or Paris Johnson. I'm hard pressed, even though the overall ranking they are first round grades. I'm hard pressed to see them going in the first round because I think the tackle position in this draft is fairly deep.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, and yeah, I want to say there was like 3 or 4 tackles with the first round grade. I guess if I look by position here, more than that actually. We had oh no no no, we had 4 with a first round grade, and then it drops off quite a bit. It goes to uh, 39 and 47 as the next two rankings. But yeah, in either event, I think defensive minded head coach, and you're not taking a quarterback, so you're going out and you're getting a cornerstone piece for your defense for the future. Jalen Carter, I think, slips just a little bit, not a ton. And so that means the next man up is Tyree Wilson. Plus, he's a defensive end. Backfills for, you had Zach Allen leave, J.J. Watt's gone. That's a good hole to fill, and if this guy can get to the quarterback, it's going to look really good as, the first kind of guy that they bring in as part of this rebuild. So,
Hmm.
and so that puts you on the clock, buddy, at 4 with the Indianapolis Colts.
So at 4, I think if this person drops past Houston, I think somebody's going to trade into the number 3 spot to pick him, so the Colts won't have the opportunity to pick him. But because of the need and the fact that he has fallen to them, I think it's probably going to end up being a different one that falls to him, but that's
Sure.
another story. I think I'm going to easily lock in C.J. Stroud as the pick here. I think there's chatter. There's also chatter of the Colts trading out of this pick.
Yeah.
But if Stroud makes it and is here at 4, I don't think Indianapolis can pass up on him.
Yeah, I think they're ecstatic if they get Stroud. And the rumor mill, because, people aren't expecting Stroud to be there, is that they've got Levis ahead of Richardson on their board. And it sounds like they'd be hard pressed to not take a quarterback this high. And so, some people are suggesting that they could even go with Levis at 4, even though most people are kind of saying, it's a bit of a stretch, but they're just in that position. So yeah, I agree. If Stroud's there, they're freaking happy, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so that takes us to 5 with the Seattle Seahawks. And so Seattle, everything I'm hearing and reading is that they're looking at the defensive line. Poona Ford's gone. They've needed to kind of strengthen that defensive line for a little while now. I'm also hearing that if they don't get the guy they want on the defensive line, they are strongly considering a cornerback such as Devin Witherspoon as their next preference. In this scenario, and listen, I mean, this is just, this is all speculation, but I've heard they're not afraid of Jalen Carter and his off-field issues at all. And so I think he is like the perfect fit based on everything I'm hearing. And so his slide is very short-lived, and I'm going to pencil him in here, James. Defensive tackle Jalen Carter.
Oh, I 100% agree with you that if Jalen Carter is available at 5, Seattle is running that card up. This might be the shortest amount of time on the clock, if this plays out like this, that the team has ever been in. It's like as soon as the pick is in for Arizona or for Indianapolis, Seattle's going to know who they pick, and they're going to be picking up the phone and say Jalen Carter, number 5, and moving on.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen some pretty crazy drops in the draft because of some of this off-field stuff. But I'm getting a lot of mixed opinions on it with Jalen Carter, where you kind of have two camps. Some guys are just saying, no, like so many players have off-field issues. Somebody this highly rated, they're going to get it in gear. It's about the coaching, and they're going to dial it in when it comes time to play. And then you got others that are like, nah, I'm just not touching him with a 10-foot pole. And so, but everything I hear is Seattle's in the camp of they're fine taking that risk, and so I think it's a good spot for them here.
See, and I also think the way it's fallen out with us, I think it's possible. Like, I think it's possible that somebody might trade into Houston's spot to pick a quarterback, which then would put Indianapolis in an awkward position and possibly not take a quarterback there, or possibly taking Levis there, and then. But Arizona would take Anderson over Wilson, which might leave Wilson at 5, which I think if Wilson's there at 5, Seattle might take him instead of Carter.
Okay.
So it's all dependent on what happens at the Houston spot. But I agree with how ours is falling out. Seattle's running that card in with
Yeah,
with Jalen Carter.
definitely. Oh yeah. Well, my man, that takes you to 6 for the Lions. Big pick. Don't be messing it up, James.
All right. So everything I've read on the Lions is defensive players they like: Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, and Anderson.
And in this scenario, they're all off the board.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to go deep into my research on them.
Sure. Yeah, and looking at their needs, Detroit does still need um, some help in the secondary because um, you know we only pretty much all the guys we brought in this year are on 1 year deal except for Cam Sutton, and so I've seen a lot of people talking about Detroit going there. In which case, you've got your pick of the litter at cornerback. My opinion on that. Um, it's tough with Okuda because he was the number 3 pick not so long ago. Would you really take another cornerback at 6? I think Brad Holmes and these guys, it's a new regime, so they're probably not afraid of that kind of thing. But, for me as a fan, I'd just be like, don't do that. But it's
Yeah,
tough. It's tough. And
it's tough.
honestly, looking at the best available, you do have Devin Witherspoon sitting there with a 93 rating. Um, if not him, there's Christian Gonzalez, which I've heard linked to the Lions a lot. But then if you're looking defensive line, you're going down a little bit further. You got like Lucas Van Ness from Iowa, and he's the number 11 rated prospect with a 91. I'm just, to me, it's like, man, you're caught between a rock and a hard place at that point.
Yeah, and this is and that's where I'm struggling with that.
Could you see them shake it up and say, you know what, Bijan Robinson, the number 2 rated prospect, still sitting there with a 95 rating. Swift hurt all the time. We just brought in Montgomery. We're taking Robinson and we're running the shit out of the ball.
See, that's so I went there and I was like, they're not going to pick Bijan Robinson at number 6. But then again, like I would hate it if they picked Bijan Robinson at number 6. Like I would absolutely hate that.
It would be going against the grain, but there's a lot of people saying he's a generational talent, and so it's even though it maybe doesn't fill the biggest need, I think you could make the case for it. But it's your pick. I'm not giving you my who I would pick. I'm just giving you info.
You might not like
That's all right. That's
my
that's
pick.
why we're doing it this way because that's how the NFL draft works.
I don't even like my pick.
All right. Well, I'll give you an extra minute on the clock if you need some time.
I'm gonna go to. Oh, jeez. Why? Why? Fuck.
We got time, man. Don't force it.
I'm gonna go to Nolan Smith,
Okay. Outside
linebacker
linebacker
from.
from Georgia.
Yeah.
All
It's just
right.
something
Tell me a
tells
little
me.
bit about that choice.
So,
He's got a 91 rating, so it's
yeah,
not
he's
like it's out of the ballpark.
he's got a 91 rating. His everything I'm reading on him. Let me find it.
Sure.
His his okay. So like everything I'm reading on him is basically his NFL comp is Hassan Reddick. It's same explosiveness according to what I'm reading.
Oh, I like that
Suddenness
comp.
and
I didn't hear that.
closing speed on tape. Um, they have they're both relentless, gritty, um, and they're good pass rushers. Essentially the same build, 6'2", 238 pounds to 6'1", 237 pounds, 32 and 5/8 inch arm length to our wingspan to our arms to 32 and 3/4 of an inch based on Hassan Reddick's 2017 combine. They're leading up to the draft with Reddick. His questions about his size translate to the NFL. Um, and that's similar questions that are about Nolan Smith. And I just I think he's will be a perfect fit to build up the linebackers that Detroit needs. Because
Yeah.
I think Anzalone and Rodrigo, yeah, great. They're great stories and they're familiar to us. But I think they need that impact player, and to have somebody that is so comparable to Hassan Reddick. If he has just 90% of the career that Hassan Reddick has had so far, I think it would be a phenomenal pick, and it'd be almost the steal of the draft for the Lions to get him.
Okay. Well, no. Hey, I like that you came up with a lot of good reasons for it. I know it took you a minute there, but yeah, I mean, hey, the Lions, they definitely need a linebacker. I think a lot of people, when they've seen the mock drafts to date, have been upset because a lot of times we're getting either a defensive end or a
Mm-hmm.
cornerback, and a lot of people are saying, geez, man, it really needs to be a linebacker. But at the same time, unless a scenario like this plays out, you don't necessarily want to reach for a linebacker when there aren't that many with a high grade in this draft class. And so,
Yeah,
uh, but in this scenario, I think it plays well to make the case for it.
yeah, and I don't think 12 to 6 is not that big of a reach because like you take out I think they're going to shy away from corners in this draft and this early in the draft.
Sure.
Because of the whole Akuda situation. I don't think they would go running back, and the way they don't need offensive tackles. So I mean, you're looking at Luka Van like the next if they shy away from
Yeah.
corners, the next best available is Van Ness with defensive end from Iowa or what's his face Nolan Smith
Yep.
to from Georgia.
Yeah,
So
you're
I
between
and I
those
think
two guys. Yeah.
and I think looking at what I've read and actually watching the games, I see great potential in Nolan Smith, and I don't see as much. I see a higher ceiling for Nolan Smith, and I like there. I would love if like Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter. I mean, even though Jalen Carter's D line, I would love it if he fell to the
Yeah.
Lions, but I just don't
Yeah.
think that that's based on our situation. That's not even possible.
Yeah. We need one of these cornerbacks or another quarterback to
Hmm.
get scooped up before us, and then one of them falls to us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't look like it's likely. So, okay, well, hey, that's cool. I got them locked in, and so that takes us to the number 7 pick, which is the Las Vegas Raiders. And so, James, everything I'm hearing about these guys is that they're basically the wild card of the draft right
Hmm.
now. People are having a hard time getting a read on where they're focusing their attention, where they're putting the priority. The consensus seems to be that they're looking at cornerback, quarterback, or offensive line in the first round. They do have big need on the offensive line. They need two positions there at least, but they also need help on the defensive line, safety, linebacker, pretty much anything on defense. And so when I'm looking at the best available, I don't see them going after Bijan because they've got, holy cow, I'm drawing a blank on the running back. Uh, they,
Jacobs.
Thank you, Josh Jacobs. They franchise tagged him, even though I don't think he signed it yet. But they're going to run the wheels off of him. So I don't see them making a move for Bijan. Um, that puts them in the conversation for Devin Witherspoon at 7. He's the number 7 ranked prospect on my list. Or Peter Skoronsky, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. He's the number 8. Aside from that, if you really wanted to go quarterback, Anthony Richardson's the number 10 rated prospect with a 91 rating. I don't see them doing that because they brought in Jimmy G. Um, but they're very unpredictable, and the Raiders are known for doing sort of questionable things in the draft. But I'm not gonna do that here. If I was them, I would go after the tackle, but I'm not them, and knowing just kind of the way that they draft, I think they're going to go cornerback Devin Witherspoon here. Give
I
me your
like how you,
opinion here.
I like how you broke it down. I think they would go either Witherspoon or Gonzalez. I think corner back is the pick for the Raiders this year.
Yeah.
Um, and since I'm on the clock with Atlanta, I'm running my pickup and pu- putting in Christian Gonzalez. I
Okay.
know, I know they've my camera just stopped working, but I know they have made a lot of moves and added corner backs. Let me fix my background.
Yeah, you're fine.
Added cornerbacks this offseason, but I think where they are, they still need a little bit more help at that position, and I like the Christian Gonzalez pick here, especially when you look at the players that have gone before. I don't think any of the edge guys. I think they're going to go with Ritter. Um,
Yeah, and some of the rumor mill is that they're hoping for either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud to fall. Uh,
mhm.
Neither of them are going to fall this far, and so
No.
it's just a matter of, could one of them fall to like 4 or 5, where maybe they feel like they could trade up to get him. I don't see it happening, which then kind of puts, cornerback. Even though they brought in Okuda, they still need a really good number 2 cornerback. And they also need an edge guy, but we kind of talked about it. Edge is a little bit dry at this spot in the draft, and so I like your pick there, man. Although I have been hearing they're also looking at wide receiver, and they could have their pick of the litter here, but cornerback is still probably the best way for them to go. I like what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think wide receivers, like you're really reaching on some of the wide receivers. They're
Yeah.
they're lower. Like the wide receiver class this year is very similar, and they're a lot lower first round picks.
Yeah, and everything I'm hearing is that there's not on the surface like a true wide receiver one in this
Hmm.
class, and maybe for them that's not a big deal because they do have Drake London, but still, like if you're going to take a guy this high in the first round, you want him to have that kind of potential long term. So, okay, so James, that puts me on the clock with the Chicago Bears at number 9. And so this is where they ended up after trading out of that number 1 pick. And so, what I'm hearing and reading is that they're looking at the trenches both ways. They're looking at offensive line, they're looking at defensive line. Their dream scenario is Jalen Carter falling to them. Doesn't happen here. And it's pretty consistent with my needs. I've got them at defensive line, I've got them with 2 offensive linemen, cornerback, edge, tight end. And so, looking at my board, I mean, honestly, it's screaming one of these offensive tackles, Peter
Hmm.
Skoronski or Broderick Jones. And I know we were talking about, do they really need a left tackle or do they need a right tackle? From what I've been hearing, it's they're going to take whoever's the best and shuffle it around because they need more than one
Hmm.
offensive lineman. Skoronski, my note on him is that he's a reliable left tackle prospect with versatility, almost always on balance. However, he does lose his ground to power rushers at times, and he's also not overpowering with run blocking. Maybe not a big deal in Chicago. Broderick Jones is the next guy up from Georgia. Size, length, and speed equates to a plug and play starter. Solid in the pass and the run, but needs to have better hand placement and lower body strength. You're talking a 92 rating versus a 91 rating here. I'm going Skoronski because of the versatility. I think if he can't hold down that left tackle spot, they'll find him where he fits as a starter on that offensive line somewhere. And so,
Mhm.
offensive tackle Peter Skoronski here.
And I like that there. Like, I think I like your thought process on it, especially with Skronsky and the versatility, because Skronsky can play guard. He actually might be better at guard than tackle, from what I'm reading.
That's true.
And I
Maybe
like,
high to take a guard, but yeah,
yeah. But if he doesn't work out at right tackle, he could slide over and play guard and be just
probably
as
be
good.
an amazing guard.
Exactly. Exactly. I do think Broderick, what's Broderick's last name?
Yeah,
Jones?
Broderick Jones.
Broderick Jones would get some consideration here because Broderick Jones is more a true right tackle.
Okay.
But I can't argue with Skoronski because he is very versatile.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, hey, that puts you on the clock at number 10 for the Philadelphia Eagles, buddy.
I'm going to paint a picture for you
Let's paint.
for the Philadelphia Eagles. Imagine this:
Yes.
a complete dominant running back
Oh, jeez.
alongside Jalen Carter.
You're
Or
running
Jalen Hurts,
quarterback?
sorry.
Yes.
You're running quarterback. Imagine how unstoppable that team would be offensively.
So this is where Bijan goes.
And I've debated over and over which one of these running backs is better.
Oh, so you're looking at Gibbs also?
I'm looking at Gibbs also.
Okay. So I've got a
Um,
late first round grade on Gibbs as the 28th rated prospect. But, you know, you take who you like. I mean, that's, whoever you think is going to be best for your team. So it's, some of that's, it's
right.
just a number.
And
So do you think that I mean, Sirianni had Jonathan Taylor, but not a mobile quarterback in Indianapolis. Do you think
yeah,
that with Hurts being mobile, that maybe it has them deprioritize that running back spot, or do you see that as a non-issue because Bijan's such a I mean, he's like by far and away the highest rated guy on the board now with a 95.
yeah.
Your next
So
best, you're sitting at 91.
so I see that as a non-issue because I think so. What we always talk about, and every year we talk about this, like when you have the pieces and you're ready to make that Super Bowl run,
Yeah.
is when you go out and you draft a running back in the first round.
Yeah, it's a luxury at that point. And oh my God, man, with that offensive line,
Uh-huh.
it would be yeah, I mean, hey, you got to lock it in and I'll
I'm
put it
gonna
on the
go with
board.
I'm gonna go with Bijan Robinson. I think he's just a slightly. I like. Uh, Gosh, why am I forgetting names? I like
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jameer Gibbs. Thank you. I was like, yeah, why can't I get it? I like Jameer Gibbs. I like them both as three down backs. I think Jameer Gibbs might be a little bit more reliable as a pass catcher, but I think the fit into what they would use him for in Philadelphia kind of goes more towards Bijan Robinson
Sure.
because he'll be their version of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think it's a very intriguing pick. I think that could be they just I mean they're already so dominant on offense. It would
Hmm.
be like impossible to stop them.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that pick. All right, so that puts me on the clock with the Titans at 11. And so this one is basically I'm hearing quarterback is a possibility. And they like Anthony Richardson, who is on the board in this scenario. They're also looking at pass rushers and offensive line prospects. And so I didn't have quarterback is that high of a need on my list, but I get it. They're running out of patience with Tannehill and Malik Willis it sounds like was a swing and a miss. And I know he's young, anything can happen, but it was really not flattering how his rookie year turned out last year. So, looking at my board, and they do need help on this is another one of these teams that really needs to go to the well more than once on the offensive line. And so I think if you were gonna take Richardson, it maybe is less of a concern because he's so mobile. And you do still have Tannehill, unless you get rid of him, where you're having time with Richardson to, develop instead of just going out there and taking a beating. Otherwise, I'd be looking at Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, Darnell Wright is the offensive lineman. Man, I think they take the chance. I think they go Richardson.
So everything I'm reading is 100% if Richardson is available here, that Tennessee is picking them. I'm also reading that Tennessee might be looking to trade up to get Richardson.
Okay. So they're
So
happy as heck if he falls to 11.
yes, they're happy as fuck if he
Happy
falls to 11.
happy as pigs on shit or whatever people say. So, all
So
right, well, hey, that gets you at 12 with the Texans, bud.
and there's only one pick here, and this is kind of how I thought it would play out with them picking Will Anderson Jr. at number 2. They're going to pick Will Levis.
Okay. All
I
right,
think
so
they,
yeah, a
they're
little
going to go
more of
for
a
a quarterback.
project at quarterback, but he's got a freaking cannon of an arm.
He's got a cannon in the arm. He has. They need pieces. They also need pieces. They're going to take Wallace to start develop him while they're accumulating the other pieces they need and the other talent they need, and get ready in his third year to make a serious contention for the division.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I like that. We know that quarterback is one of their highest needs. You know, everything that I've been hearing and reading is that it's either quarterback or defensive line, one and then the other. And in this scenario, they go defensive line first, then they go quarterback. Outside of that, it looks like they could go wide receiver, and then like interior offensive line, which this is probably a little early for that. Um, yeah, and so in this scenario, yeah, they're still getting their defensive lineman and their quarterback, just not the people that some of us think it might be. And so, yeah, I'm good with that, and I have marked him off, my friend. Okay, so that takes us to 12. I'm sorry, 13 with the New York Jets, and they, looks like they're gonna get Aaron Rodgers at some point, but nothing's a guarantee in this world. Assuming they get him, quarterback is not their highest need. What I'm reading is that they're doing all their homework on offensive linemen, and uh, if they can't get an offensive lineman that they want, they're looking at defensive linemen. And so in this scenario, you got to be thinking, hey, you're bringing in Rodgers, or at least you're hoping to bring in Rodgers. You better have a solid offensive line, which was a little bit leaky last year, despite them making investments in it over these last few years. And so um, I think it's between one of these three offensive tackles, Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, or Darnell Wright. They're both very closely rated. Broderick Jones has a 91. The other guys have a 90 rating. Just reading their notes here. Let me just say this. Jones, size, length, speed. We already talked about him. Paris Johnson, elite size and arm length with position flexibility, good awareness, but he plays with his pads too high. Darnell Wright, likely to play right guard or right tackle or offensive guard, but elite combination of height, weight, and speed, subpar arm length. based off of these reviews, man, I don't know. I got to go Broderick Jones. He's the top rated guy. They're all pretty similar in their ratings. So I'm going to plug him in, man. Offensive tackle Broderick Jones.
All right. It's kind of where I figured that was going to be. That's where I had. So next up we have the Patriots, and Bill Belichick does his own thing all the time at the draft. So I'm going to take a deep dive into this.
Yeah, so I hear they're targeting wide receivers, but you also know they've like never had success drafting wide receivers. So it's who knows.
So let me look at their needs. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I want to say they need. Oh yeah, here we go. So defensive back, offensive tackle, wide receiver, linebacker, edge, defensive line. Um, you can go in a lot of different directions, man. And yeah, it's hard to get in Belichick's head because he does some sort of crazy things here in the draft.
I'm going to say, and just because it's Bill Belichick, I'm going to say they're going to take Mozzie Smith,
Oh, the defensive
defensive
tackle
tackle
from U
from
of M.
Michigan. Yeah,
Okay, where do I have him on my board?
he's number 38. And the
Thank
reason
you.
I say that is because he has those kind of like he clogs the middle. He's incredibly strong,
Yeah,
and it seems like that weird random overreach for Belichick that he does every year, like Cole Strange and who like, and I think Belichick's going to shy away from drafting a wide receiver this early. Um, Everything I'm reading is Mac Jones might be done in New England, and they're out on him because of him seeking outside advice from somebody outside
yeah,
from somebody outside the organization.
yep,
So I don't think they're going to go offensive line or wide receiver yet. I
sure.
think they're going to possibly there's a chance that they'll draft a quarterback in the second round this year. So that's just what I'm reading from there.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, and I'm just looking. I'm having a hard time really disputing that, making a different kind of pick here. You know, maybe safety Brian Branch from Alabama, just because I know Belichick loves his secondary.
Mhm.
But no, I'm good with that, man. Yeah, Maisie Smith, I think he had the most bench reps at the combine this year. Like you said, they're saying he's like maybe the strongest prospect in this class, and so yeah, you pair him with what's the guy's Christian Barmore or whatever, the other defensive
Yeah.
tackle they have. That makes for a pretty stout interior defensive line, man. And Belichick loves the trenches, so that's cool. So that takes us to 15 with the Green Bay Packers. And so they actually have a fair amount of needs. They need safety, tight end, wide receiver, defensive line, edge, offensive guard. What I'm reading is that they're focusing their evaluations on defensive line prospects and tight ends primarily, but they're also looking at wide receivers. And so they do want to get some pass catching help for Jordan Love because they've made that bet and now they're going to lay in it. I think, when you look at the board, you've got Lucas Van Ness still out there with a 91 rating. You have tight end Dalton Kincaid out of Utah with a 91 rating. He's out there. And they're bare bones at tight end. Tanyan's gone. Mercedes Lewis, I believe, is gone. They got to make a move there. And this is a very solid year to go after a tight end. I'm just going to plug in Dalton Kincaid here. Um, Accelerates quickly, makes the first defender miss, picks up yards after the catch. It just seems like he's the top tight end prospect. Should be a good fit here.
And I agree with you. I like tight end, especially with Jordan Love projected to be the starter this year, unless they do something crazy. Um, I I think they will target the tight end because the tight end is a young quarterback's best friend.
Yep, very good point. Very good point. Okay, so yeah, that takes you to 16 with the Washington Commanders, James.
So the Commanders, I think their top priority should be quarterback.
But they're committing to Sam Howell? Or do you think that they're just
Here's
saying
the
that?
thing. Here's the thing about it. Here's the thing about it is they can. I keep wanting to put. They could get Hendon Hooker, who may need a little bit of development. Allow the Sam Howell experiment to happen while Hendon Hooker gets healthy and develops. I think Hendon Hooker is the style of quarterback that Rivera has been successful with in the past, a la Cam Newton. I'm not saying that he's as good as Cam Newton was. So I could see them possibly going with Hendon Hooker here.
Sure.
But I don't think they will. I think they will go with.
Oh, so yeah, you're just saying you could see it, but you're going to lock in a different guy, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think.
Because they did sign Jacoby Brissett, and so the combination of him and Sam Howell is probably where they're going at quarterback for this year. But yeah, I guess, knowing that Hooker needs a year anyhow, maybe they would grab him and stash him.
Yeah,
But that's just basically saying that they don't believe in Sam Howell. So
right. So I'm gonna go with and like I do see the possibility of offensive tackle. I think the one that they tend to be locking in on for offensive tackle might be a little bit of a high pick for him. I think for Sam Howell, the younger quarterback, he's gonna need his best friend, and he's gonna need a tight end.
okay,
And I'm gonna go with Michael Mayer.
yeah, maybe the most well-rounded tight end in this class. Highly productive at Notre Dame, but he did run pretty slow, and so I think that that's kind of dropped him on the board a little bit because going into this, he was like the number one tight end without a doubt,
Mhm.
and then it flipped, and Dalton Kincaid took that spot over. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good pick here.
Yeah, and the thing I like about him here is he also he's a good pass blocking tight end
Yep,
as well.
yeah, solid with that for sure.
Yeah. So I think that would fit more into I think the way the tight ends went here with Green Bay with Kincaid and Washington with Mayer. I think that's actually how it could fall out because that's kind of like Rivera would want more of a blocking tight end, where LaFleur would want less of a blocking tight end, more of a route running tight end.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I could see that happening. I like that, man. I like that. Okay, so yeah, I mean that would give Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett some pretty good weapons. So you still have um, what's his name? Oh my gosh, I must be getting tired. All right, help me out here, James. Washington
Yeah,
Commanders
it's
wide receivers. They've got
uh,
Terry McLaurin. They've
Washington,
they've got Jahan Dotson, Curtis
McLaurin.
Samuel.
Yeah.
So they're solid at wide receiver. You get a tight end. You've got great weapons there. At running back, you got Brian Robinson and what's his face, their other
Gibson,
running back.
Antonio Gibson.
Thank you, Gibson. So you're set there. Um, and then they do still have Logan Thomas at tight end as their other tight end, but he was hurt a lot last year, and so
Hmm.
I think that you're you're giving him as many weapons as you can give him. It just hopefully that offensive line can also protect him, but I think they can find guys later in the draft for that. So that takes us to 17 with the Steelers. And so what I'm hearing is that they are looking at cornerback or offensive tackle, and Joey Porter Jr. is their dream scenario, with them having a lot of familiarity with Joey Porter Sr. And in this scenario, they do have a couple offensive tackle prospects, and they have Joey Porter Jr., all of which have a 90 rating on this board. And so I'm not going to question it. I'm plugging him in here. Joey Porter Jr.
I'm hard pressed to argue with you there. Pittsburgh does weird fucking things. They should absolutely go offensive line, offensive line, offensive line, offensive line,
protect their young quarterback,
and offensive line.
Yeah.
But I don't think they. I'm hard pressed to disagree with them going with Joey Porter Jr. I think it's very possible.
Yeah, and they've neglected the offensive line in past years. And sometimes it's been okay. They've neglected it and they found guys and it's been good. But yeah, I mean, I would probably protect Kenny Pickett, and we've talked about it. Open up running lanes for Najee Harris, but yeah, I don't see them passing on Joey Porter Jr. So that takes you back to the Lions, man. You get to double dip on this shit. You got the Lions at 18 here, James. Tell me where you want to go, bud.
We're gonna go, and I like this combination when we get there. I'm more sold on this pick than the other one. Well, he needs to improve his pass rush a little bit. He's good against the run, and I think he'd be a perfect complement on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson.
Okay.
And that would be Lucas Vennas. Sorry.
Oh, from Iowa. Okay.
Yeah. I think if he falls this far, the Lions would be hard pressed to pass on him. I think if he doesn't fall this far, I could see them, and we probably destroy them over this. I could see them going with Jahmyr Gibbs here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
If Van Ness doesn't fall down here.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people pairing Kalijah Cansey with them here, but it's tough. It's Van Ness is the number 11 rated prospect on the board. Cansey's 22. That's a little bit of a drop off. Yeah, and they'd love to have a running mate with Aiden Hutchinson. So I like that. I like that pick there. My one concern is, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I forgot a point. I just clicked in my head. I forgot a point to make.
Yeah.
When you said Broderick Jones to the Jets.
Yes.
And this goes to what I told you previously.
Mm-hmm.
When it was rumored. A couple years ago, when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, at number 13, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected Tristan Wirfs,
That's
a
right,
versatile
yeah.
tackle.
That pick is destined to be an offensive lineman.
And that propelled them to the Super Bowl that year.
Yep.
That combination.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I got it right then, James.
Yeah, but that pick is destined to be an offensive tackle.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, so going back to Van Ness's that pick, my one concern is that he wasn't actually a full-time starter at Iowa. And so that's something I've been trying to get to the bottom of, is that do they just have some beast on that depth chart ahead of him, or was he just kind of a specialist needing to develop his moves? That's something that I've not gotten clarity on, but I think for this point in the draft, everything I'm reading is that would be a really good pick. So
yeah, okay, so
I mean, he's got to have something going to be the number 11 ranked prospect.
Yeah, let me see if I was able to find a comparison
Sure.
for him. I know. Wow, that's interesting.
What's that?
Just glancing at it, this mock draft has Nolan Smith falling to 18,
Okay.
and the Lions picking him there. Then that's Carter, and that makes sense. I'm looking for notes on Van Ness.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm just kind of looking for my next pick here while you're doing that, so I get to cheat ahead a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not finding a real comp that was. Huh, that's interesting.
What's that?
Another mock draft has the debate for Philadelphia picking Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs at number 30.
Okay. Yeah, man, I can't see Bijan Robinson falling to 30, but you never know. Anything can happen. The running backs, they've been deprioritized so much that you never know. But everybody I hear and read, they're comparing him to frickin' Saquon and guys like that, which means you'd think it'd be the top half of the first round somewhere.
All right, so here's my notes on Van Ness. Van
Yes.
Ness has positional flexibility. He's 6'5", 272 pounds. He could play either defensive end or defensive tackle. Um, Penetrating pass rush on late rounds, using power to hold up the run game. He had 7 sacks last season in Iowa. I don't know why he wasn't a full time starter though. A full time.
Yeah, that's a thing, and I heard that on the radio, and so I don't have a whole lot of the background and the details as to why, but I mean, analysts are liking what they're seeing, and so
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. So this is his scoring. Um, it's pass rush skills excellent, versus the run above average, versatility excellent, instincts motor above average.
okay,
I'm just really trying to find
yeah,
why. Like I'm not coming up with anything.
yeah, you would think for him to be that high of a prospect, I mean, they'd have to have like some frickin' dynamite guy in front of him, and even then, you just put him on the other side. So,
Yeah, so Van Ness, this is another guy's notes. He's a versatile frontline defender with high revving motor and overwhelms opponents. The Iowa standout offers position flexibility and is a rugged player at a point of attack with outstanding skills as a run stopper pass rusher.
okay, well, I
So
mean,
maybe
hey,
maybe he went between at end and
that
tackle, and that's
that
what
could
they're.
be, yeah, maybe they were, and that's because, like I said, I didn't get the full backstory, but maybe it was he wasn't full time at defensive end that he bounced around.
Yeah.
That could very well be the case,
Yeah, because
and that would make me feel a
everything
lot better.
I've read on him and all my notes on him do not have doesn't even mention not being a full time player.
Yeah, yeah.
So it might be he played both, and I'm picking up on the versatility, and other people are picking up. Well, he didn't play full time at edge.
I got you. All right. Well, hey, let's move it on, man. At 19, we got the Buccaneers. And so, James, what I'm hearing and reading is they want a left tackle. If they can't get a left tackle, Tristan Wirfs is going to sit there and they'll take any tackle and put a guy at right tackle. With that being the case, I think it's a no-brainer. They're going Paris Johnson Jr. here.
I'm hard pressed to disagree there. I think Paris Johnson Jr. and um,
Darnell
uh,
Wright, the next
Darnell
guy.
Wright. I think they're comparable. I think Paris Johnson Jr. might be better on the left side, but the drawback of him, he does play too high.
Yeah.
But that's
It gives him a little bit of hope that he could be a left tackle. I think
yeah.
Darnell Wright, a lot of people are expecting him to be a right tackle or a guard. And they would prefer to keep Wirfs on the right side. So that's where I went Paris Johnson here.
Yeah. So this isn't all right. So next year we have to make a rule that if there's teams that have 2 picks in the first round, that we alternate it because I
Sure.
got Seattle again,
And
and
we actually did that one year, but that's okay. This year, the way it worked out, it's no big deal.
so with Seattle getting Jalen Carter first,
Yes.
your notes are saying cornerback. I don't think the cornerbacks get that are left get much value here at 20.
Sure.
But I do think what brings a little bit of value is another need, and that's on the offensive line with Darnell Wright.
Okay.
Like it's you're looking at right tackle or guard. He has the versatility there. He's not going to be a left tackle, but I like that fit in Seattle because if I remember correctly, what we were kind of saying with their need is they needed a lot on the offensive line, and
Yeah,
the
and they
flexibility with Darnell Wright could help them in
yeah,
any of those positions.
yeah, I like that pick, James. They did get a couple of rookies last year that ended up taking those bookend spots pretty well, but with them still needing more help there, Wright can come in and they're saying he could be a guard. Maybe you move him to whatever right guard or whatever, um, and you beef up that offensive line, which will help with Kenneth Walker running the ball, and
Hmm.
it'll help keep Geno clean to get the ball to Lockett and Metcalf, and I can't argue with that, man. I think that that's solid. I think that if things didn't play out the way that they wanted to at the start, I could have seen them go in Devin Witherspoon like I've been hearing, but I think that they prefer to get Carter like they did, and then this just flips it to the other trenches. It's a good way to
Hmm.
go. And I man, like I have it in my notes that linebacker is a top need for them, but this is another one of these tricky things where, they brought back Bobby Wagner on a 1 year deal, and there's really just not a good linebacker to take here. So um, maybe you stretch down and you go get Keon White from Georgia Tech, but probably a little early to be doing that. So all right, so that takes us to 21 with the Los Angeles Chargers. And so, I've got their needs at defensive line, tight end, linebacker, offensive tackle, edge, and safety. The rumor mill is saying they want a pass catcher. They either want Jordan Addison or the top tight end prospect. And if they can't get any of that, then they're looking at the edge. And so, and I don't know why they want to go wide receiver, to be honest. I know Keenan Allen had that like mysterious, I'm going to be back any week now that lingered on, but I would see, man, this is tough because I would say tight end is probably a higher priority for them, but the rumor mill's specifically calling out Jordan Addison. And my note on him is he's a savvy, elusive route runner, catches in stride, hits his top speed, which is not elite, but he gets there quickly, a little undersized, could be dangerous, is a slot wide receiver and a return man immediately. And so if he's coming in to play slot, you'd have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the outside, and this kind of helps alleviate the need for a tight end. I'm going to plug it in, man. I'm having a hard time not because they did specifically name drop him. So I'm
Yeah.
going to go wide receiver Jordan Addison.
So the only thing with with the Chargers that I am reading recently out here is with Eckler wanting a trade that they might be targeting Jameer Gibbs.
Oh, gotcha. That's an interesting one. Yeah, because if they get rid of Eckler, Gibbs would come in and be that receiving back kind of guy, very similar to Eckler. But I locked in Addison. So
Yeah. So and with back to Baltimore, which is the next pick. What I'm seeing is I'm seeing and your notes have it, and I've seen a lot of name drops with Quentin Johnson or Jordan Addison as well here. Um, I don't think so on either of them.
Okay. Yeah, they did bring in Odell Beckham Jr., but that's, I've been hearing they're still wanting another higher rated wide receiver. So
I think they're going a completely different path, and you probably just lost my video. I just saw that.
that's okay.
Um, so, anyways, I think they're going a completely different path, and I think they're going to go Hendon Hooker here.
Well, yeah, because all right, so you're making the assumption then that either they're trading Lamar or he's going to play the 1 year on the franchise and then be gone.
Yes.
Man, in either case, I like that pick here, James. Yeah, yeah. Because, yeah, I think, a realistic scenario is that Lamar's going to play the 1 year and
Hmm.
then he's going to be out.
The realistic scenario is Lamar's going to sit out this year and not play on the franchise tag.
Okay. Yeah, in which case they just roll the dice with what's his face, their Pro Bowl
Hmm.
quarterback, Huntley. So, okay. Yeah, and maybe they bring in Teddy Bridgewater or something, and they make it work. I could totally see that. No, I like it because I like Hendon Hooker's upside a lot. When you look at what he did in the SEC, man, and I'm just looking at his thing here. Elusive with good agility and top end speed, smooth, compact delivery with a beautiful deep ball, inconsistent at times with timing and ball placement, and abandons the play too soon.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
those are things to work on, but
things to work on exactly.
but
And the
he
thing
did,
with
yeah,
him is before he got hurt, Tennessee was on its way to playing for the national championship.
yeah, yeah,
Also, before he was doing that with subpar receivers at Tennessee.
yeah,
He was also on his way to being probably a unanimous Heisman Trophy winner or close to it, as well as he was playing at the time when he got
yeah.
hurt. And that's, I think, he has that ability as long as he comes back and his medicals come. Everything I'm reading is he might have to miss a couple weeks, not even the entire season. Like we're looking at like week 4 or 5, he'd be back fully ready to play.
Gotcha, gotcha. Um, yeah, I like it, and I'm looking at the next pick, which is the Vikings, which some of the rumor mill stuff is that they've been hoping that one of these quarterbacks would fall
Hmm.
to them, and in this scenario, you basically snipe them of that, which I'm fine with. I mean they've got Cousins, they're not like desperate to make the move, but um, that's some of the fun of the draft. If you can get in and steal a guy that might go the next pick, it's like, oh, you get some excitement there. So, um, but yeah, so my notes are they're likely targeting a cornerback or hoping a quarterback will fall to them. They also have needs on the defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, guard, and safety. I've been hearing for a while now, and this goes to um, wow, I'm obviously tired because I'm just not remembering names at all tonight. But this goes to what's his face going to Carolina, um, them wanting
Bryce
another
Young
wide receiver,
or what's his face going to Carolina?
their wide receiver. They let him go, or
Oh, Thielen.
Adam Thielen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, normally I'm not this tired like this, James. I don't know what's going on here, but um, a lot of what I'm hearing is that they want another wide receiver to go with Justin Jefferson, and they would have pretty much their pick of the litter minus Jordan Addison here. You could go Jackson Smith Jigba, you go Zay Flowers, you go Johnston, sorry, um, and then even Jalen Hyatt. I've heard his name getting called, even though he's a little bit further down the board. When I look at the profiles on these guys, I gotta believe they're gonna go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean,
Hmm.
the note is he's got a rare feel for the game and sets up defensive backs. I mean, he was pretty phenomenal at Ohio State, and so, but I don't know that you go wrong. I think that he's just in combination with Jefferson would be like that perfect running mate, and so I'm plugging him in.
Okay, which puts me on the clock with the Jaguars, and I have one. I have a thought on that,
Yes.
and let me open the right tab because if I remember something correctly, I just want to I want to double check something. My
Sure.
notes should be accurate on this, and this is kind of how this player I kind of thought would be available here. I need to. Yes,
Yeah.
he does. So this player is he needs to get a defensive end needs to get a little bit stronger. He's has good closing burst, but he seems to be the perfect defensive end for a 3-4 defense,
Okay.
which is what Jacksonville runs, and that's Will McDonald the fourth from Iowa State.
Gotcha. Yeah, and he's one of my higher rated guys on the board at this point. Um, yeah. Yeah, I'm showing that he's either well, so yeah, my notes that he's likely a 3-4 outside linebacker to start at the NFL. Um, but I mean, that's, he just ends up being an edge guy for them, which is something that
Yeah.
they need. So, um, I can't argue much with that. And they got Trayvon Walker last year high in the draft, so they're stacking that part of the defense. I like that. Um, and I did have a note that they have been looking at safety as well, with a note for Brian Branch as an alternative here. But I think they would get better value out of Will McDonald here, and so I like that pick. Next up, we got the Giants. And so the Giants, they need a wide receiver, a couple offensive linemen, a cornerback, a safety, a linebacker, someone on the edge. The note that I'm reading is that they want a wide receiver that's explosive with speed, or they want a cornerback. And I mean, they could go either way with that. I mean, you've got Zay Flowers out there at wide receiver, Quentin Johnston at wide receiver. You've got really the only cornerback. Well, no, there's a couple cornerbacks still in this range here. You've got Deontay Burks and you've got Emmanuel Forbes. Um, let's see. Just trying to think of how they would be thinking about this, because they did make it work last year with a hodgepodge of wide receivers.
Hmm.
And they really got to get better on defense. I'm going Deontay Banks. I like the note. Physical, and he's at his best in press zone, has good hip fluidity. It actually says he's the most reliable tackler in this class. He does get exposed sometimes when his back is to the ball. I like that, though. I like that pick for them here. All right, so Deontay Banks off the board. Back to you at 26 for the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry's World.
So I think the Cowboys. mainly targeting the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. I think it's a little bit of a stretch for some of the offensive line players that are still remaining. So then you're looking at defensive line, and I think more they're targeting interior defensive line versus defensive end.
Sure.
So that leaves, and it's right in this range pick value wise. I have pretty much the consensus is this player is ranked number 22 overall in the draft. Kalijah Cansey, defensive tackle from Pittsburgh. He's a disruptive run defender. He's a good pass rusher. He does his arms are short according to somebody that said that. I don't know why. I know they do also need a tight end, but the tight ends are kind of a stretch. But at this point, I think Darnell Washington is more of a second round
He's a
grade,
project.
and he's a project, and that's not what Dallas is going to want. If they go tight end, they're going to want somebody that this early. They're going to want somebody that
Yeah.
can step in. I think if any of the players like Kincaid or Mayer fall this far, they might pick them. They also
Yeah.
could trade up if they trade up to get ahead of Washington and Green Bay to get that tight end.
Yeah, I like that assessment. I could see them wanting one of those top tight ends for sure. But in this scenario, I like Cansey going to that defensive line. Man, helping out Dan Quinn in that defense. You know, they've not put enough resources into that defense, and he's gotten a lot of production out of it. And so that's a solid choice. And so, yeah, let's see what else. Yeah, I mean, my note was they really want a dynamic tight end, but there's not one here without waiting on him to develop. So the other priority is defensive line. All right, so at 27, Buffalo. So I'm seeing that they've done a lot of homework on wide receivers, and they also are looking at linebackers, specifically noting Drew Sanders or Trenton Simpson. I don't see either of those guys being a first round pick. I think
Mm-hmm.
if they went linebacker, you're looking at Keon White. And let's see. So yeah, that's a tricky one because he's projected as either a defensive end or a 3-4 outside linebacker. Um, but he's a high ceiling guy. Let me just read this for a second here because I don't think he fits the linebacker position the way they need it. So I think they would have liked Kalijah Cansey, but you took him. I don't see them going down to the next guy. Let's see. This one's throwing me for a bit of a loop here. I mean, if they really want a wide receiver too, somebody to pair with Diggs, you still got Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnston. And my note is saying that they've done a lot of homework on wide receivers. I think they're getting better value out of one of them looking at the board than reaching for a linebacker at this point. I just think Keon White's like a square peg in a round hole. So I'm between Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnston. Let's see. Do they want the big guy or Flowers, great release and separation? I think they want the big guy between these two. I think it's a good compliment to Diggs. I'm going to go Quentin Johnston here.
So I think, and you're lacking Quentin Johnson. I think that they're more like Jalen Hyatt is more their speed of wide receiver who's kind of explosive after the catch and I mean, Allen can kind of throw him open.
Yeah, I guess I was just looking as a compliment to Diggs because you're
Hmm.
already getting that kind of style out of Diggs, you know. Um, and so this is just, yeah, I don't know, my way of maybe giving him like the big bodied target to complement that.
Yeah, which I could see that. So this one's a no-brainer for me at Cincinnati. It's how
Sure.
it's fallen. It's not that much of a stretch because I I mean he was like the number 34 overall, but when you look at Cincinnati, they kind of still need offensive line help. They've done um, done a lot of work at the tackle position. I think they need interior offensive line, and he's probably this player is I'm just looking at your notes. I'm not even going to my notes. The most dominant interior offensive lineman in the country. Um, I think they go with Osiris Torrance here.
Yeah, I think they'd be a sweet pick for Cincinnati. Um, and yeah, this is based off of the ESPN.com's best available reviews on each of these guys, by the way, which
Mhm.
I like. I like how they do it. And I told you a few weeks ago I was starting to get anxious because they didn't have them updated yet, but they got it all plugged in this past week, which has been nice. Yeah, I like Osiris Torrance here. I could see them going back to the well more than once in this draft for the offensive line. Um, Here's the crazy thing is that I'm hearing they could be a surprise team to go after a running back, in which case this would be Gibbs. And so that could be whether they're just not liking some of this legal stuff with Mixon, or they want to have a compliment for him because he has had injury history, um, or, who knows what it is. But I wouldn't, I don't know. They pass all the time. So I don't know. I think the offensive line is the better way to go for them. And that takes us to 29. We got the Saints. And so the Saints, I'm sure they would have loved Osiris Torrance actually, because as I'm looking at it, it says they're looking at offensive guard is their preference, with defensive tackle is their runner up preference. They also are looking at tight ends, offense. Oh, I already covered that. Wide receiver, linebacker, and cornerback. Um, that makes it interesting for these guys. What did they do here? I, I actually no, I don't want to go too far. I think that this is actually a good spot for Darnell Washington. He's a project at tight end, but Derek Carr was used to having Darren Waller with the Raiders. I think this gives him a guy that he can go to. I know they've got Olave is their wide receiver one. They still kind of got Mike Thomas, but they're looking for other options. Darnell Washington could develop into another reliable pass catcher for them, and so I like him here.
So with the Saints, I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't think Darnell Washington's a first round tight end.
It's a
I'm going to
risky
say
pick, but
it's a very risky pick. I think with what happened this offseason, the Saints basically had to clean out all their defensive tackles. And I think that's where they're going to go in this draft. I actually think that,
I mean,
um,
but you're reaching big time. You've got to go down to
I know,
43.
I know that, but I think one of the
It's just too big
players,
of a need.
it's too big of a need
Okay.
for them.
I mean,
And
as long as you're saying that to me, then I guess
yeah,
I can
it's way
understand it.
too big of a need for them because they clearly, clearly,
I'm just trying to keep them higher up on the board here of who's available. Yeah, and I mean, I guess you could go defensive end too. Miles Murphy's still there. This Felix and I don't even know how to Ozoma something. I don't know how to say his name, but um, yeah, I guess there are some guys there. Either way, I'm locking in Darnell Washington. It's my pick.
speaking of Miles Murphy,
Yes.
guess who's picking Miles Murphy?
The Philadelphia Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles are picking Miles Murphy. Yeah, you know, he does have his drawbacks, but Holy shit! I didn't mean to do that.
What's that?
I just looked at a mock draft, and it was Kuiper, McShay going back and forth. And who do you think they have picking Miles Murphy at number 30?
The Detroit
Philadelphia,
Lions?
the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey, that's cool, man. Happy coincidence.
Yeah, this fits what the Eagles like to do in round one: build up the trenches. Can you say anything more on that? No, I really like Miles Murphy here to them. It it's probably is just what I see Philadelphia doing, and they took the luxury pick, and they need to continue a help because their defensive line is severely geriatric at this point.
Yeah.
So I like I like them going with Miles Murphy there. Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that. I mean, it fills a need on the defensive side of the ball, and you know, yeah. I mean, I'm just maybe safety Brian Branch at this spot. You know, they do need to get a safety, but you know, I think they can go in a number of different directions, so that's fine. All right, so that takes us to the last pick of the first round because what was it? The Dolphins lost their pick, and
Yeah.
so only 31 picks this year. You got the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm hearing that they're looking at wide receivers and or the defensive line edge position the most, but they also need at least one offensive lineman. They may need a backup running back and a backup tight end. I don't see any of those being first round picks for them. So I think it's between wide receiver or that edge position. And, they've got options near the top of the board either way. Something's telling me they're not going to go wide receiver. I just don't see it. And so, Mahomes is going to make it work with like anybody. He's just that good of a quarterback. He's one of those guys that elevates the game of his wide receivers. And so we're looking at Felix and Zoma, however you say his name, out of Kansas State, pursues with relentless effort, can redirect inside, sometimes gets stuck when blockers lock on and power stalls out. Or you're looking at Keon White is maybe a defensive end or a 3-4 outside linebacker. I do like his note. Power to stack offensive tackles and tight ends. Chases with good effort and effective tackler. Relies too much on power but has a high ceiling.
Hmm.
That's going to be my pick. Outside linebacker Keon White.
I tend to agree with you that they're going to shy away from wide receiver at this pick. Um, One concern I have is, yeah, I know Pacheco had a good rookie season last year. Is Andy Reid's going to see Jameer Gibbs sitting there
Have a hard time.
and have a hard time passing on him?
Okay.
I do like the fit of Keon White in Kansas City, but I do have a feeling that if Jameer Gibbs, sorry, or Bijan Robinson falls to 31, Andy Reid's going to have a hard time passing, just
Yeah.
like he had a hard time passing on Clyde Edwards bullshit, non-existent,
Yeah.
non-fake running back. But like I said, I like the Keon White pick to them. I like that fit a lot. I agree with you that Keon White is a better fit there than Felix.
Yeah.
Another
We'll just
thing,
call him Felix.
one area I could also see them going if it falls this way is I could see if Zay Flowers is there, there's going to
Yeah,
be a
in this case he
longer
is.
thought.
Yeah.
If also with like the offensive lineman, you're not you're not quite getting value there, um, and but Anton Harrison could be a good pick for what they would need
Oh yeah.
because they lost their left tackle and they need a left tackle specifically on the that offensive line, and Anton Harrison could step in as a day one starter at left tackle, so that would be a consideration there. But I do like the pick slash value of Keon White.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you pointed out Anton Harrison because for the end of the first round, that's actually a pretty solid choice. Effective run pass blocker with room to grow, stalls out at times, but he's a likely starter at left tackle or right tackle. Likely starter at the end of the first round. That's worth taking a chance at this spot of the draft for sure. But
Hmm.
either way, I locked in Keon White, and it is what it is. That's the end of the first round there, buddy.
It's good with me.
All right, so on to round two. Are you ready? No,
Yep.
we're not doing round two tonight. We've been going for over 2 hours.
With the first pick of round two, the Chicago Bears select "Fuck you."
Yeah, yeah, we don't like you. Well, hey, all right. So that gets us through the first round. I think when we went through it, in past years, sometimes we jumped around a little bit more on the best available list. This year, it seemed like a lot of it aligned well with the teams, and
Hmm.
not necessarily their needs, but also the rumor mill of what they've been targeting. And so we stayed pretty tight to the top, but I think that's fine. I mean, that's teams want to go best available if they can. So,
Yeah,
uh,
we only took four picks outside of the top 31.
yeah, not too shabby, man. Not too shabby.
And it wasn't that far out. Like we took 32, 33, 34, and 38.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. I think it was a good mock. All right, so you ready to go to question of the week, man?
I'm ready.
I want to come back and talk a little bit more about this Bryce Young thing going number one overall. And so going back to Houston, if Bryce Young does in fact get drafted number one overall, you think they'll trade out or take defense at two instead of taking C.J. Stroud? Um, I think that too, based on what I'm hearing. I guess I just want to know, some more of the reasoning behind that. And so I know that's kind of a weird way of asking a question, but um, we covered him and Deshaun Watson having the same agent, and that being an unfortunate experience for Houston. We know that the player representation, or lack thereof in the case of Lamar Jackson, can be a factor for a team. I think you got to take the best guy available that's going to set up your team for long term success. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a quarterback. Will Anderson looks like a freak talent on defense. They got the defensive minded head coach in DeMeco Ryan. This is the first year of a rebuild. So keep thinking long term. And I kind of liked the way that the draft worked out. You had him getting Levis anyhow later on. And so I think it just boils down to, hey, man, if you're not getting a warm and fuzzy out of Stroud, don't force it. There's
Hmm.
no reason to do that. And so I don't know. I think the reasons are there, but what are some of the other reasons or thoughts that you have with that, James?
So I disagree with it. I think, yeah, agent plays a role, but I think more of the issues with Deshaun Watson was Deshaun Watson and certain things that were going on within the Houston organization
Oh yeah,
there.
no, I agree. You don't want to muddy those waters because they're two different people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that not picking somebody who could change your franchise because of his agent is a stupid, childish thing to do, which I think is something that is possible for Houston to do because that's the MO of
They've
their
been messed
franchise.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough said. All right. Well, hey, you good?
I'm good.
All right, I'm good too. So, yeah, hey, lengthy show. Anybody who's still watching, we hope you liked it. We hope you enjoyed it. Hit us up with some comments. We want to know, what team you're for and what guy you want and what you liked or didn't like about this mock draft. And also, come on, man, play Name That Stadium. We're dying for somebody to get in on that action. And so, next week we'll be covering a recap of round one. We'll be doing this next Friday, and so we'll have to talk about the time of that, James, because yeah, we got rounds 2 and 3 going on that night. But like always, man, it was fun. I hope you have a good night, bud.
All right, sounds good. Hope you have a good one too.
All right, see ya.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.